Now, I don't know how much time she took to reflect on this experience, but I think it would be good for her to reflect on it a little longer. And I'm actually not trying to make fun of her, because having such an experience is not funny.
I feel like we've all been there where we're like, I didn't really want to do that, or I wasn't really into it, but then like I did it because, and it's like, why did you do it? And you're like, I don't know, like
You flew to another continent to meet up with some guy. This is not some chick scrolling through her Tinder with a 20-mile radius and linking up with a dude and feeling kind of uncomfortable on the date and doesn't know how to excuse herself from the date, even though her house is like 20 minutes away. We're not going to compare the two. It's completely different. That was a lot of time. She had a lot of time to change her mind. But oh no, what? He was hot? He was hot and he was very nice. He said he'll pay for the whole trip. Women will be like, how could I say no to that? What was I to do? He had an answer for all my problems. He was going to make the whole trip easy for me. Oh my gosh, fellas, this is so dangerous out here. If they're going to like be tripping and change their mind after the fact.
as we've seen in the world, we are not equal to men. We don't have autonomy over our bodies. And so for me, using my platform right now to be like, let me be the boldest I can be, even if people are a little taken aback, I hope it just helps other women.
Call Her Daddy is the biggest female podcast in the world, with millions of women listening every single week. But unfortunately, the host Alex Cooper uses his platform to talk about casual sex, partying, and how men are to blame for every bad thing that's ever happened to her.
No denying that we have always been underserved and we are treated like second-class citizen to men, right?
And people call that empowering. And the funny thing is that Alex Cooper actually claims that she cares a lot about women's mental health.
Slowly, the show transitioned to talking about mental health and having people on that were willing to open up.
Okay, so I see we already have a hypocrite. How is she going to claim that she promotes women's mental health when she herself is part of the problem? On her podcast, apparently she promotes casual sex, partying, degeneracy, and misandry. Y'all know what misandry is? It's the prejudice and hatred and resentment of all men. It's the opposite of misogyny. Yes, it's a word. You should know about it. It's happening everywhere today. This is going to be some biased mental health advice.
But Alex, don't you realize how dangerous your own podcast is for women's mental health?
I have gone through a man's phone a handful of times in my life.
I
Why?
don't know if she...
Why? Ladies, why do you do that? Why do you want to hurt yourself? Leave that man's phone alone. You go looking for trouble, you finna find trouble. You look for something bad, you'll find something bad.
I don't know if she's just uneducated, ignorant, or that she knows how damaging it is but just decides to put this stuff out anyway. But I think it's none of the above. I think she's just a woman who is fooled by feminism without even realizing it. And I'll give you the perfect example of how dangerous that is.
Yes, please do. Please get your girl because she's a part of your community. You blue-eyed white girls and your feminism rhetoric and Karenness. She looks like a lovely, lovely young lady. I mean, whew. But I can't trust you because of your people, okay? Your community, your group.
A while ago, she uploaded an episode about the time she flew to Paris to meet a guy she'd never met in real life before. When she met, she wasn't attracted to him and they didn't connect.
We quickly learned how incompatible we were.
But she still stayed for a week and she had sex with him anyway.
One awkward thing led to another and we had sex. And it was awful.
Even though she was the one to initiate the sex. Now the big question is, why? Why would she do that if she didn't like him? Well, this is her answer to that question.
I still to this day can't fully articulate why I didn't leave. I didn't want to make the other person feel more uncomfortable. So I tried to appease the situation and make it better because staying and being miserable somehow felt easier than pissing someone off and getting in this fight and leaving and acknowledging how awkward it was. And since he wasn't saying anything, I was not going to say anything. And
fellas, do you understand how dangerous it is to actually be a man in today's modern dating world? I mean, she practically just revoked her consent. She claims that women are not autonomous and they're second-class citizens, and yet She chose to go to a country she's never been to meet up with a guy she's never met before, and initiate sex with him anyway, even though she wasn't really feeling the vibe. She kind of wanted to leave right there and then, or at least leave him. She's crying out and playing victim instead of actually taking some accountability. Women avoid accountability like it's the plague. I don't want to hear oh, I just didn't want to upset him or cause this fight. I didn't know what was going to happen if I refused him his sexual advances, or maybe it was just romantic advances. And she decides, hey, you know what? Let me just stay here anyway. Why are you even talking about this? What was the point of that story? To make it seem like you have no options? You put yourself in that situation with a stranger, and all of a sudden you feel helpless. You feel like there is nothing you could have done to get out of that situation.
Now, I don't know how much time she took to reflect on this experience, but I think it would be good for her to reflect on it a little longer. And I'm actually not trying to make fun of her, because having such an experience is not funny. I feel sorry for her that she somehow felt like she had to do all of that and somehow put herself in that situation. And
don't feel sorry for her.
How to get out of
she
it.
wanted to be in that situation.
Woman who has experienced something like this.
Like, I feel like we've all been there where we're like, I didn't really want to do that, or I wasn't really into it, but then like I did it because, and it's like, why did you do it? And you're like, I don't know. Like,
you flew to another continent to meet up with some guy. This is not some chick scrolling through her Tinder with a 20-mile radius and linking up with a dude and feeling kind of uncomfortable on the date and doesn't know how to excuse herself from the date, even though her house is like 20 minutes away. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to compare the two. It's completely different. That was a lot of time. She had a lot of time to change her mind. But oh no, what? He was hot? He was hot and he was very nice. He said he'll pay for the whole trip. How could women will be like, how could I say no to that? What was I to do? He had an answer for all my problems. He was going to make the whole trip easy for me. How could I say no to that? Oh my gosh, fellas, this is so dangerous out here. If they're going to like be tripping and change their mind after the fact, let's just assume that you are a consummate gentleman, right? But the vibes were kind of weird. Maybe guys didn't have good chemistry. Let's approach it from there. If a girl is adamant about going over to your place or clapping cheeks on the first date or even second date, it doesn't matter. End it. The date is done. All right. If you've already felt that high, that climax of the date, and things are kind of chilling and winding down, just be like, hey, this was a good evening. Let's call it a night. And that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to end the night. You don't have to overdo it, because she might actually already be tempted to do it. It's just a battle with herself whether she wants to do it or not. It's basically a flip of a coin. They have to be enthusiastic about saying yes. If it's not that, then honestly, just don't approach it, because then you have women like this that say, I didn't really want to do it. I would have rather done anything else except for that, but it happened anyway, and I feel kind of bad about it. Boy, if you were like a millionaire or something, Trump or Andrew Tate, I don't know who, they're going to take your ass to the ground, to court, sue you for everything you have, P. Diddy.
I've heard from lots of women that they didn't really want to sleep with a certain guy and then ended up doing it anyway and kind of felt traumatized by it. And I'm not talking about a situation here where the woman is very attracted to a guy and then sleeps with him, because that's a very different scenario. But seriously, this situation of hers is not something that can't be prevented. To be honest, she put herself in a very dangerous situation. And I think it's very dangerous to tell such a story to millions of women and not even give any insightful message at the end of it. Because what does her conclusion really tell us here? Nothing. Lots of words come out of her mouth, but she's not saying anything. If she really wants to help women, she should have said, girls, I made a really big mistake by flying all the way to Paris to meet up with a random guy I met online. Because that's where it all started in the first place. She fell in love with him online and expected him to be this really hot guy who would pay for everything and that they would just fall in love.
In my mind, I was about to get on a plane to meet the potential love of my life. My stomach was filled with butterflies. And time couldn't have gone by slower. All I wanted to do was run into Paris Man's arms and start my fairy tale adventure.
But if you're a woman watching this, life is not a fairy tale. What she did is really high risk, and the chance of it going well is really small. I think she was lucky that the guy wasn't truly malicious, because then things could have ended up a lot worse. If you meet someone online, you should always meet him in a public place first, for all the obvious reasons. Which she also didn't do, by the way. And then, if you end up not liking him for whatever reason during the date, the best thing you can do is just politely tell him that it's not a match for you and go home. She told in her story that she...
That'll still hurt. But do it anyway. Ladies, put us out of our misery. Men are stupid. Okay? And we'll take what we can get. Unless you're blatantly clear that you are not interested in him. He will be on some stalker mode, okay? Not in a weird way, but like a sad puppy type of way. Like, it's embarrassing.
She told in her story that she initiated the sex because she hoped that the sex would change their feelings toward each other.
Oh my god, she's a hoe.
Thought maybe if we physically connect, it will bring us closer together and we will go back to the way that we were before I got here, the way that we were texting and connecting.
Because in her head, she still wanted to make this fairy tale work, despite her own disinterest in the guy. Which is just not how it works. You know, what this whole podcast episode shows me is that she doesn't know at all how relationships work. And that she's one of the least suitable people on this planet to give any advice on relationships and dating. Yet, she has one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and she talks about sex and relationships all the time.
I have a really random thought for you about threesomes.
Oh, yeah.
And foursomes.
Yes.
This is so strange.
Which is very worrying, to say the least. A while ago, I made a video about why women keep having casual sex, despite not even really liking it. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch that later. But the thing is that for most women, casual sex is just not that casual. The reality is that sex impacts women differently than men. For women, sex triggers emotional bonds, due to higher levels of oxytocin released during intimacy. And this hormone is often referred to as the bonding hormone. It's particularly strong in women, and that makes it very hard for women to just see it as something physical. And I think that pretending that women can have casual sex like men can is one of the most dangerous lies that feminism promotes. But Alex talks about it on her show all the time.
Hey, is it toxic that I look to have casual relationships with women who are interested in a serious relationship? Because if you're super easy, I just think you're kind of a hoe, and I'm kind of not as interested in you. Like you'll be my plaything. And we'll have a good time. I'll feed you. If you're attractive enough, I'll introduce you to some of my friends. But I'll never like full on commit. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather like wear down a girl who does want something serious because in my mind I'm like, yes, exactly. You shouldn't put up with my ish. You need to have a good man, and if you want something monogamous, that's exactly what you should get. It's just not going to be with me. Now quit playing, baby, and come back to bed.
She's got millions of young girls looking up to her, and she's poisoning their minds with this stuff. And especially young girls are so easy to influence, and they will do anything to be part of the culture or part of the group, which honestly just breaks my heart, that this is the culture we're living in right now. Alex Cooper literally got big by talking about how she hooked up with athletes and telling women how to give jobs. And today it's not as bad anymore because she's married now. She actually seems a lot happier, and good for her. I hope she's happy. But it would be nice if she stopped poisoning other women with her toxic feminist message. Because instead of trying to learn from her mistakes and taking responsibility and accountability for her actions, she just blames other people for it. And that's actually what bothers me the most. Not that she talks about casual sex like it's the most normal thing in the world for women, but the fact that she just tells about her sexual experiences, complains about it afterwards, but doesn't offer any valuable insights.
Oh my
but yeah,
God.
since she got big by participating in hookup culture and talking about it on her podcast, it's probably hard for her to completely abandon that, because then she will likely lose a large part of her audience. But it feels hypocritical to me that she's happily married now, but keeps feeding other women this nonsense. I wish she would come to her senses and would do the right thing, because there really is no happy ending in hookup culture, especially not for women.